I'm not quite ready for advancement, she said, staring at the performance review form instead of meeting my eyes. Maybe next year. The words hit me like a physical weight pressing on my chest. I couldn't breathe for a moment. 347 nights I'd stayed past 9. 128 weekends sacrificed. Thousands of hours stolen from my life. I don't understand, I managed to say, my voice embarrassingly small in her expansive corner office. You said the extra hours would lead to… Amara, she interrupted, finally looking up with that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Dedication is important, but leadership qualities take time to develop. You're just not there yet. She slid the form across her desk with a manicured hand. The bold black check marks in the meets expectations column seemed to mock me. I've given everything to this team, I whispered. And that's commendable, she replied, already turning to her computer screen. We value your contributions, but perhaps manage your expectations? The quarterly meeting is in 30 minutes. I need the Westlake presentation finalized. I nodded mechanically, gathered my papers, and walked out. My legs carried me to my desk while my mind replayed the last year in vivid detail. Every early morning, every midnight email, every family dinner missed. Every moment I'd convinced myself the sacrifice was worth it. I'm Amara, by the way, 29 years old. Until that moment, I was the senior analyst who believed working 75-hour weeks under Elise meant I was proving myself. That moment in her office was exactly 8 months ago, and everything that's happened since then still doesn't feel entirely real. Before I go any further with this story, could you please take a few seconds to tell me in the comments where you're watching from? I'm still processing everything that happened, and knowing my story is reaching people somehow makes it easier to share. And if you could like and subscribe, it would really mean a lot. I have other stories about workplace reality that might help someone else feel less alone. So, back to that day. I returned to my desk and stared at my computer screen. The Westlake presentation displayed the same charts and analyses I'd spent 3 sleepless nights creating. The same presentation Elise would deliver, just as she had with every major project for the past year. I glanced across the open plan office at the corner where our team sat. Zach was rubbing his bloodshot eyes while updating financial models. Priya was quietly eating lunch at her desk while taking client calls. Everyone looked exhausted, but I'd been there longest. Elise's first hire when she became department head. You okay? Taylor whispered, rolling her chair closer to mine. She was the only other person who regularly stayed as late as I did. I forced a smile. Fine. Just tired. The promotion? She asked. Next year, apparently. She gave me a knowing look. She said the same to Hector last year before he left. I turned back to the Westlake presentation, making one final edit before sending it to Elise. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Are you coming to dinner Sunday? Haven't seen you in weeks. I stared at it, realizing I couldn't remember the last family dinner I'd attended. Dad's birthday? No, I'd sent a gift but was working on the Henderson proposal that night. Christmas? I'd made an appearance for 2 hours before returning to the office to prepare for the year-end meeting. When I looked up, Elise was walking toward the conference room, my presentation in hand, nodding confidently to the executives gathering inside. She caught my eye briefly and gave me a small, expectant nod, her signal that I should be ready for any questions she couldn't answer. That night, I didn't stay late. For the first time in months, I left at 5:30, ignoring Elise's surprised glance as I packed my bag. I walked to my apartment instead of taking the train, needing the 40 minutes to clear my head. My apartment felt strange, almost like a hotel room. I'd been spending so little time there that dust had gathered on the framed photos of friends whose calls I'd stopped returning. Plants my sister had given me as housewarming gifts had long since died. I sat at my small kitchen table and opened my laptop. Instead of checking work emails, I created a new document and titled it Resignation Letter. But I didn't write anything else. Something stopped me. Not loyalty to the company, certainly not to Elise. It was anger. Pure, clarifying anger that had been building for months, finally crystallizing in that performance review. I deserved better than to simply walk away. The next morning, I arrived at work at my usual early hour of 7:15, but with a completely different mindset. Where I had once seen dedication, I now recognized exploitation. Where I had seen opportunity, I now saw manipulation. Elise arrived at 9:30, as she always did. The Decker report needs to be completely revised, she announced, dropping a folder on my desk. They moved the timeline up. Need it by tomorrow. I'll get started right away, I replied, with the same eager tone I'd always used. She paused, perhaps detecting something different in my eyes, but then continued toward her office. Oh, and I'll be in meetings until 4. Handle any client calls that come in. Of course, I said. That's what I'm here for. I wasn't supposed to talk to clients directly. That was her role. She'd made that abundantly clear from day one. Yet somehow, during those 75-hour weeks, it was always urgent that I handle client calls when she disappeared for her 3-hour lunch meetings. After she left for her first meeting, I began working on the Decker report, but I also opened a new spreadsheet and created my first entry, Day 1 of documentation. For 2 weeks, I meticulously recorded everything, every project I completed, every client call I handled, every hour I worked, every idea Elise presented as her own. I set up a system that archived emails and recorded when documents were created and modified on the shared server. What I discovered surprised even me. Over the past year, I had personally handled 64% of our department's deliverables. I had directly communicated with 78% of our clients, many of whom had started emailing me directly rather than going through Elise. And here's where things get interesting. During those late nights when Elise thought I was just grinding away on reports, clients had started to recognize who was actually doing the work. Thanks for the quick turnaround on those projections, Amara, wrote Curtis from Whitefield Industries. I've stopped copying Elise since you're clearly the one making things happen. Your analysis on the market expansion was exactly what our board needed, Nadine from Arvon Ventures had written. If you ever consider a change, we should talk. I'd never responded to these subtle offers, believing my loyalty would eventually be rewarded. What a joke that seems like now. 3 weeks after my performance review, Elise called me into her office again. The executive team was impressed with the Westlake presentation, she said, smiling. They specifically mentioned the market segmentation approach, the one I'd created at 2 a.m. on a Sunday while she was posting vacation photos from her weekend getaway. That's great to hear, I replied. I mentioned you helped compile some of the data, she added, as if offering a generous acknowledgement. I just nodded, my face neutral while my documentation spreadsheet grew by another entry. There's a new client coming in next week, she continued. Very important potential account. I need you to prepare a comprehensive proposal by Monday. That's 4 days from now, I noted. Will you be available to discuss the approach before I get started? Her smile tightened. I'm afraid I'll be at the leadership retreat until Tuesday, but I trust your capabilities, Amara. That's why I give you these opportunities. Opportunities. As if 75-hour weeks were a gift rather than theft. I understand, I said. I'll make it happen. The new client was Meridel Systems, a rapidly growing tech company that would significantly increase our department's revenue. I spent the entire weekend developing the proposal, researching their business model, crafting tailored strategies. I skipped my cousin's wedding to finish it. On Monday morning, I sent the finished proposal to Elise's email, knowing she wouldn't see it until she returned from her retreat. Then I made an unusual decision. I forwarded a copy to my personal email as well. By this point, my documentation had grown extensive. I had spreadsheets, tracking projects, client communications, hours worked, and ideas presented. I had archived emails showing my work and Elise's subsequent presentations. I even had recordings of conference calls where clients specifically asked for me rather than Elise. What I didn't have yet was a plan. That changed the following week when Jordan, the director of Meridel Systems, called the office asking for me specifically. Amara speaking, I answered, surprised to receive a direct call. Amara, this is Jordan from Meridel. I wanted to personally thank you for the proposal you put together. It's exactly what we've been looking for. I hesitated, glancing toward Elise's empty office. I appreciate that, but I should mention that our team— No need for modesty, Jordan interrupted. Elise explained that you were the architect behind the strategy. She spoke very highly of your capabilities. I nearly dropped the phone. Elise had taken credit for my work countless times, but this was the first time she'd done the opposite, giving me credit for something she should have claimed as a team effort. That's good to hear, I managed to reply. Actually, that's not the only reason I'm calling, Jordan continued. We've been impressed with your approach. We have an opening for a director of strategy that I think would be perfect for you. Would you be interested in discussing it? The offer caught me completely off guard. Yes, I would be interested. Excellent. Let's set up a time next week. And, Amara, this conversation is between us for now. After hanging up, I sat motionless at my desk, mind racing, a job offer, a director position, at a company that would be our newest client. The pieces began falling into place. I now had documentation of Elise's pattern of behavior, direct client relationships she didn't know about, and a potential exit strategy. But something still felt incomplete. Walking away to a better job would be satisfying, but it wouldn't address the fundamental injustice of what had happened, not just to me, but to everyone on our team. That night, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Curtis at Whitefield Industries, who had hinted at a position months earlier. The conversation was brief but productive. The second was to Nadine at Arvon Ventures, who sounded genuinely excited to hear from me directly. The third was to our company's HR director, Kelsey, requesting a confidential meeting the following morning. When I arrived at work the next day, a new clarity had settled over me. I went through my morning routine as usual, but instead of diving immediately into work, I walked to the HR department. Kelsey welcomed me into her office with a look of curiosity. This is unusual, Amara. You've never requested a meeting before. I know, I replied, setting my folder on her desk. I've been with the company for 3 years now, all of them in Elise's department. I'd like to discuss some concerns I have about management practices. Her expression shifted to cautious professionalism. I see. What kind of concerns? I've documented a pattern of behavior that I believe constitutes both ethical violations and potential breach of company policies, I said, opening my folder. I've prepared this information because I'm submitting my resignation today, and I wanted to ensure the company understands why. For the next 30 minutes, I walked Kelsey through my documentation. The hours, the client communications, the misrepresentation of work. Her expression grew increasingly troubled. This is extensive, she finally said. Have you discussed any of this with Elise directly? No, I admitted. The power dynamic made that difficult. Kelsey nodded slowly. I appreciate you bringing this forward, though I wish you'd come to us sooner. Would you consider delaying your resignation while we investigate? I've already accepted another position, I replied. My last day will be 2 weeks from now. She looked disappointed, but not surprised. I understand. May I ask where you're going? Meridel Systems has offered me a director position. Her eyebrows shot up. The new client? Does Elise know about this? Not yet, I said, but she'll find out soon enough. When I returned to my desk, Elise was already there, scrolling through emails on her phone. Where were you? She asked without looking up. The quarterly reports need revision before the 3 p.m. call. I had a meeting with HR, I replied calmly. That got her attention. Her head snapped up, eyes narrowing slightly. HR? What about? I submitted my resignation, I said, handing her an envelope. My last day will be in 2 weeks. She stared at the envelope as if it might burn her fingers. Resignation? This is unexpected. We've invested so much in your development. The audacity of that statement almost made me laugh. Instead, I simply nodded. Yes, well, I've decided to pursue another opportunity. Which company? She demanded, her composed facade cracking slightly. Meridel Systems, I replied. They've offered me a director position. The color drained from her face. Meridel? But they're about to sign with us. How did you even… Jordan called me directly, I explained. Apparently you told him I was the architect behind their proposal. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice again. That was a misunderstanding. I was simply acknowledging your contribution. For the first time, I noted. Her eyes hardened. This is highly unprofessional, Amara. Poaching a client? I didn't poach anyone, I interrupted. They called me. And I'm not the only one. Whitfield and Arvon Ventures have also made offers. Now she looked truly alarmed. Those are our 3 largest accounts. Yes, I agreed. And they all seem to know who's been doing the actual work. Elise glanced around the office, suddenly aware that our conversation might be overheard. 5 minutes, she said in a lowered voice. Just give me 5 minutes to discuss this privately. I pretended to consider her request. All right, but not in your office. Let's use the main conference room. She looked confused but nodded. Fine. 10 minutes. I'll be there, I promised. As she walked away, I sent a quick text message. Conference room A, 10 minutes. When I entered the conference room exactly 10 minutes later, Elise was already seated at the table, typing frantically on her laptop. She looked up when I entered, then froze when she saw I wasn't alone. Behind me walked Kelsey from HR, followed by our CEO, Alden Merrick, and the head of client services, Marcus. What is this? Elise demanded, standing abruptly. The 5 minutes you requested, I replied calmly, taking a seat across from her. I thought it would be more productive with everyone present. Alden Merrick looked between us with confusion. Kelsey mentioned there was an urgent matter regarding client relationships. Would someone explain what's happening? Before Elise could speak, I opened my laptop and connected it to the room's display screen. I think it's easier if I show you. For the next 20 minutes, I methodically presented my documentation, including client emails praising work they thought was Elise's, detailed timelines showing when work was created versus presented, and evidence of the 75-hour weeks I'd been working while Elise claimed credit for the results. Most importantly, I concluded, 4 major clients have made it clear they've been working with me directly for months. 3 have offered me positions, and I've accepted one with Meridel Systems. The room fell silent. Alden Merrick's face had grown increasingly stern throughout my presentation. Marcus looked stunned. Kelsey was taking notes, her expression unreadable. And Elise. Elise had gone from defensive to desperate. This is a complete mischaracterization, she finally stammered. Amara was ambitious, yes, but she's clearly twisted these interactions too. Elise, Alden Merrick interrupted quietly. The timestamps on the server don't lie. Neither do the client emails. And what about this? I added, pulling up one final email. It was from Jordan at Meridel, sent that morning after I'd called to accept their offer. Amara, we're thrilled you've accepted our offer. As discussed, we'll be terminating our pending agreement with your current employer due to leadership concerns they've been made aware of. Looking forward to having you on board. Elise's stammering defense collapsed entirely. The room felt charged with tension as Alden Merrick turned to me. Amara, would you give us a moment to discuss this privately? I nodded, gathered my things, and walked toward the door. As I reached for the handle, Alden Merrick spoke again. And Amara, please don't leave the building. I'd like to speak with you afterward. I returned to my desk, where the team pretended not to notice the unusual meeting that had just occurred. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from Alden Merrick's assistant. Mr. Alden Merrick would like to see you in his office. When I entered the CEO's spacious office, Alden Merrick was standing by the window, looking out at the city skyline. He turned as the door closed behind me. Please, sit down, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I took a seat, waiting for him to speak first. I want to apologize, he began, which was not what I expected. What happened to you should never have occurred in this company. We pride ourselves on recognizing talent and rewarding hard work. Thank you, I replied carefully. Elise has been removed from her position, effective immediately, he continued. Kelsey is meeting with the rest of your team to gather additional information, but your documentation was comprehensive. I simply nodded. I'd like to offer you her position, Alden Merrick said directly. Same salary she was making, plus the bonus structure. You've clearly been doing the job already, and the clients trust you. The offer hung in the air between us. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at this opportunity. Now, it felt hollow. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I've already accepted the position with Meridel. Alden Merrick leaned forward. We can match whatever they're offering, plus compensation for the overtime and missed promotion. I smiled slightly. It's not about the money, Alden Merrick. It's about trust. I can't work for a company that allowed this to happen for so long. He looked genuinely disappointed. I understand, but is there anything we can do to at least keep the client relationships intact? Meridel, Whitfield, Argo, they represent nearly 40% of our annual revenue. And there it was, the real concern. Not my well-being or the toxic culture, but the bottom line. That's not my decision, I replied, but I suspect they'll make their own choices based on who they want to work with. Alden Merrick nodded slowly, accepting defeat. Your 2 weeks' notice won't be necessary. We'll pay you through the end of the month, but you can clear out your desk today if you prefer. I'd like that, I said, standing. Thank you. As I walked back to my desk to gather my things, I could feel eyes following me. News traveled fast in our office. Taylor approached as I was packing my personal items. Is it true? She whispered. Elise is gone? I nodded. Yes. And you're leaving too, for Meridel? Also yes. She looked around cautiously before speaking again. Take me with you? I smiled for what felt like the first time in months. Send me your resume tonight. When I walked out of the building for the last time, carrying a small box of personal items, I felt lighter than I had in years. No more 75-hour weeks. No more stolen credit. No more empty promises. 3 months later, 5 members of my former team had joined me at Meridel. Curtis from Whitefield had taken a position as our director of partnerships. And Elise? Last I heard, she was struggling to find a new position. Apparently, references matter. I work 50 hours a week now, by choice. I have dinner with my family every Sunday. I sleep in my own bed, not at my desk. And when someone on my team stays late, I make sure they know it's noticed and appreciated. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. The best revenge is building something better from the ashes of what tried to break you. If you're watching this and recognizing your own Elise, remember, documentation is power. Your work has value. And sometimes, walking away is the strongest statement you can make. If my story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more. And leave a comment letting me know if you've ever had an Elise in your life and how you handled it. No one should have to work 75 hours a week for a promotion that never comes. I didn't expect my story to get this far, to be honest. When I first walked out of that building 3 months ago, part of me was terrified. Switching careers is scary enough. Switching after burning bridges with a supervisor like Elise felt like jumping off a cliff without checking if there was water below. The morning after I left, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. out of habit, heart racing with phantom anxiety about reports due and emails unanswered. I actually reached for my phone before remembering I didn't work there anymore. For the first time in over a year, I went back to sleep. When I started at Meridel the following week, I half expected to walk into another version of the same nightmare-different building, same toxic culture. But Jordan met me in the lobby personally. Not to parade me around like a trophy, but to introduce me to the team members I'd be working with. We don't do hierarchy for hierarchy's sake here, she explained as we walked through an open workspace that actually looked comfortable. Your title is Director of Strategy because that's the work you'll be doing, not because we needed another layer of management. My office, yes, an actual office with a door, had a window that faced east. For the morning person you mentioned you are, Jordan said with a smile, though we hope you won't be here at sunrise anymore. On my desk sat a small plant with a card. This one's hard to kill, even if you work reasonable hours. Welcome to the team. That first week felt like detox. I kept bracing for urgent last-minute requests that never came. I'd finish projects early and sit there, anxiety building, wondering what I was missing. You're done? Jordan asked, finding me still at my desk at 6:30 p.m. one evening. Why are you still here? I just wanted to make sure the client presentation was perfect for tomorrow, I explained. She leaned against my doorframe. Amara, the presentation was perfect 2 hours ago when we reviewed it together. Go home. What if there are questions I didn't anticipate? Or if, then we'll handle them tomorrow, she interrupted gently. This isn't that place. We don't measure dedication in hours spent looking busy. I stared at her, not quite believing it. Listen, she continued, her voice softening. We hired you for your brain, not your capacity to sacrifice your life. If you're working past 6 regularly, either you're inefficient or we've assigned you too much. Either way, that's a problem we need to solve. The strangest part wasn't adapting to reasonable hours. It was realizing how much actual work I could accomplish in those hours when I wasn't constantly interrupted, undermined, or forced to redo projects to match someone else's arbitrary vision. 2 weeks in, Taylor joined me as a senior analyst. She walked into my office her first day, set down her bag, and just started laughing. What? I asked. This morning I woke up with a stress headache out of habit, she said, wiping her eyes. And then I remembered I don't work for Elise anymore. It felt like being released from prison. Over the next month, 3 more team members followed. Each time, Jordan asked for my input on where they'd fit best. Each time, I recommended them based on their actual skills, not their willingness to sacrifice nights and weekends. You're probably wondering what happened back at my old company. I wish I could say I didn't care, but that would be a lie. I was curious, and yes, part of me wanted confirmation that there had been consequences. I got my answer about 6 weeks after leaving, when Curtis from Whitefield joined Meridell as our partnerships director. It's a disaster over there, he told me over coffee on his first day. After you left, Alden Merrick tried to convince clients that nothing had changed, but nobody bought it. Whitfield pulled our contract when they assigned some new guy who couldn't answer basic questions about our implementation. And Elise? I asked, trying to sound casual. Curtis snorted. Gone. Alden Merrick kept her around for maybe 2 weeks before realizing she couldn't deliver without you doing the actual work. Last I heard, she was interviewing at Thaxter Group. I felt a strange twinge at that. Thaxter Group was known for grinding through employees even worse than my former company. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. What about the rest of the team? I asked. The ones who haven't already followed you here are updating their resumes, he said. Alden Merrick brought in some hotshot from their East Coast office to rebuild the department. But the damage is done. 3 major clients walking out in 2 months doesn't look good for anyone. I nodded, processing this information. The revenge I'd orchestrated had extended far beyond what I'd initially imagined. It wasn't just Elise who'd suffered. The entire company was facing the consequences. That night, I called my mother for our weekly chat. You sound troubled, she noted after I'd asked about my dad's garden and my sister's new baby. My mother always could read my voice like a book. I found out today that my old company is struggling, I admitted. After I left, I mean. And that bothers you? I thought I'd feel, I don't know, vindicated? But it's more complicated. She was quiet for a moment. You know what your grandmother used to say about revenge? That it's a poison you drink yourself? She laughed. No, that's from a self-help book. Grandma used to say revenge is like spicy food satisfying in the moment, but sometimes gives you heartburn later. That made me smile. I'm not sure this is heartburn. More like, I didn't expect to feel responsible for everyone else there. Did you do anything wrong? She asked simply. I thought about it. No. I documented what was happening. I accepted a job offer. I told the truth when asked. Then, what you're feeling isn't guilt. It's empathy. Even for people who didn't protect you when you needed it. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights. For the first time in months, I had time to just sit, to think, to process everything that had happened. The following Monday, I received a LinkedIn message that nearly made me drop my phone. Amara, I hope this message finds you well. I've been reflecting on our time working together and realized there are things I should have handled differently. If you're open to it, I'd appreciate the chance to speak with you directly. Elise. I stared at it for a full minute, emotions churning, anger, disbelief, curiosity, suspicion. Was this a genuine apology or a desperate networking attempt from someone who discovered her reputation was now toxic in the industry? I showed the message to Jordan during our weekly check-in. Are you going to respond? She asked after reading it. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it completely. And the other part? I sighed, is curious about what she could possibly say to justify what she did. Jordan handed my phone back. Just remember, you don't owe her closure. I didn't respond to Elise that day, or the next, but the message sat in my inbox like a splinter under my skin, not hugely painful, but impossible to ignore completely. 3 days later, I was getting coffee at the shop around the corner from our office when I heard a familiar voice ordering at the counter. I froze, cup in hand, as Elise turned and saw me. She looked different. The designer clothes and perfect makeup remained, but something about her posture had changed, the untouchable confidence replaced by something more hesitant. Amara, she said, clearly as surprised as I was. I didn't expect to see you here. Our office is just down the block, I replied, gesturing vaguely outside. She nodded, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. Did you get my message? I did. Another pause. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, she said finally. But I meant what I said. I'd like to talk if you're willing. I should have walked away. I had every right to. But curiosity won out. I have 15 minutes now, I said, nodding toward an empty table by the window. We sat across from each other, steam rising from our cups. Neither of us touched our coffee. I didn't get the job at Thaxter Group, she said abruptly. Or the 3 after that. Apparently, references matter more than I realized. I said nothing. The thing is, she continued, no one will say it directly, but I know it's because of what happened with you, with the clients who left. That wasn't my doing, I pointed out. They made their own decisions. Based on relationships you built while working for me, she countered, then immediately seemed to regret her tone. Sorry, that's not. I'm not here to blame you. Then why are you here? She looked down at her untouched coffee. I've had a lot of time to think about how I managed the team, about how I treated you specifically. I waited. I was promoted too quickly, she said quietly. I wasn't ready. Everyone above me had impossible expectations, and I didn't know how to meet them without pushing those beneath me even harder. You didn't just push, I replied evenly. You took credit for work you didn't do. You lied to clients. You promised promotions you never intended to deliver. She flinched but didn't deny it. Yes. The simple admission caught me off guard. When everything fell apart, she continued, Alden Merrick made it very clear that I was the problem. Not you, not the clients, not the company structure. Me. And you disagree? I asked. I did at first. It was easier to blame you for being overly ambitious or the clients for being demanding. She met my eyes directly for the first time. But no, I don't disagree anymore. I built my success on your sacrifice. And when you stopped sacrificing, everything collapsed. I took a sip of my coffee, unsure how to respond to this unexpected honesty. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she added, or for help finding a new position. I needed you to know that I understand what I did wrong. My 15 minutes were nearly up, and I needed to get back to the office. As I gathered my things, I finally asked the question that had been bothering me since I left. Why me, Elise? You had 5 people on the team. Why was I the one working 75-hour weeks? She looked surprised by the question. Because you were the only one who could handle it. The only one smart enough to do the work and dedicated enough to put up with the hours. You were, she hesitated. You were the only one like me. I stood, processing her words. That's where you're wrong. I'm nothing like you. I never was. As I walked back to the office, her words echoed in my head. The only one like me. Had she seen herself in me? Some younger version before ambition curdled into exploitation? I'll never know if Elise truly changed after our conversation. Last I heard, she'd taken a position at a smaller firm, starting several rungs lower than her previous role. Sometimes I wonder if she's making someone else work 75-hour weeks with empty promises of advancement. But that's not my problem anymore. It's been 8 months now since I walked out of that toxic environment. Meridel is thriving, partly because we've brought in talent that was undervalued elsewhere. I have a team of 12 people now, And not one of them works weekends unless it's truly exceptional circumstances. And when they do, they get compensated properly for it. I have a life again. I attended my niece's birthday last month. I joined a hiking group that meets every Saturday. I'm dating someone who understands that I need to finish this report. Doesn't mean I'll be working until midnight. Yesterday, Alden Merrick reached out through a mutual connection, hinting that they'd like to discuss partnership opportunities between our companies. I politely declined the introduction. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. The most valuable lesson from all of this wasn't about revenge. It was about worth. About recognizing that no job should consume your life, that no promotion is worth your health, your relationships, your dignity. If you're watching this and nodding along because you recognize your own Elise, your own 75-hour weeks with promises that never materialize, please hear me. Documentation is your friend, but the courage to walk away is your superpower. You don't have to orchestrate an elaborate exit like I did. Sometimes the simplest act of self-respect is updating your resume and declining that 11 p.m. call. Your work matters. Your time matters. And no supervisor, no company, no client has the right to convince you otherwise. If my story helped you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. And let me know in the comments if you've ever had to walk away from a toxic job or if you're thinking about it now. Because sometimes, those 5 minutes they beg for, after you hand in your resignation, they're not worth giving.